Guys, we are talking our predictions and big theories for the Morbius movie coming out. Welcome back to the Jersey Comic Crew. Chris and Rob here, and today we're going to discuss some of our biggest predictions, some of our biggest theories of what's going to happen in this Morbius movie. And Rob, I know you are pretty excited for this movie.
Yeah, man.
What are your big predictions? What do you think is going to happen? Who's showing up? Everyone wants to know, including me.
I think it's going to be a fun movie. I'm going to have a lot of popcorn. It's going to be an awesome audience.
You're more excited for the food. What are you doing?
I might be. I'm hungry. I haven't had lunch yet. No, the focus on the movie, I think we're going to get a lot of cool setup for the Morbius character. I feel like the Morbius character in comics and in like animated shows hasn't really gotten the bright light that it needs to. Now, whether or not this movie is going to be great or not, I think we're going to leave this movie thinking that was cool to see this vampire guy do all this kind of crazy stuff. The biggest question is whether or not, like, is this connected to everything else? And I find myself reserved to answer that question. And the reason is because I feel like us as like moviegoers are so focused on what's next instead of what's going to happen in this movie, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to just for a little bit focus my attention on what's going to happen in this movie, I'm very curious on like who the villain's going to be and what kind of like creatures is he going to fight, right? Because so far we've gathered like, you know, it's him coming into his power set and like he's lashing out at random villains here and there. I really hope that we see like a B or C list villain from the Spider-Man mythos or even from the Morbius movie that he goes against. We do know that Matt Smith has been casted as an unknown character in this, and we haven't really seen too much of the villain in this movie. So maybe Matt Smith could be the villain and like another vampire, maybe more true to the typical kind of vampires that we know, not the Living Dead vampire that Michael Morbius is, but more traditional vampire like Dracula and stuff like that. So you can see two kind of vampires going against each other. I think that could be really cool, and that also could be how we set up the rest of the, you know, universe or how it connects to Marvel, whatever they decide to do. But focusing on just this movie, I think we see a lot of vampire action going against each other, and there's definitely gonna be a handful of scenes where we're like, oh, that was really cool.
And I think you're right on track with Matt Smith's character. I think there's a possibility he's Dr. Emil Nikos, which was a friend of Michael Morbius in the comics. He becomes like his main villain because basically they both had the same blood disease, and Morbius became, you know, able to fly and do all cool stuff, and Emil Nikos became just a regular vampire. So I think there's going to be a lot of that of like, how dare you? I'm not cool. But also, you know, some type of animosity behind maybe he saves his life by giving him the same blood transfusion without figuring out if it's right for him. And he's mad at him for like saving him that way or something like that.
And also the blood transfusion can mess him up and like turn him to dark and just pure monster and not in control. Unlike Morbius.
Yeah, and maybe it's Morbius. Maybe it's Michael Morbius's blood after Morbius turns into what he is, and he tries to save him that way, even though he didn't want to, or something like that. Like there could be all kind of this, like, you know, brotherly connected fight stuff that happens in this, which I think would be a good part of the story if that's the way they're going to go. For me, I think it's going to be, like you said, a lot of action, a lot of cool stuff, fight scenes. I'm not really going into this thinking it's going to blow me away, right? I think it's going to be kind of in the realm of the Venom movies that Sony's done. And the big question is it going to connect to anything? I think the biggest chance, Rob, is it connects to the other Sony stuff that isn't strictly Spider-Man MCU related, right?
Yeah. We
have Vulture. We know that he's going to at least cameo in this. Is this a Sony weird way of doing their Sinister Six where Morbius is a part of that? I don't know. Is Vulture's, company going to be in this from the MCU? Is, some of the stuff that he left behind, is that going to be in there? Are we going to see Scorpion, right? We know Matt Gargan was there for a while. So that's a question. Do we see Venom at all? I don't think we're personally going to see Venom in this. I think that's kind of trajected into like, hey, we need the symbiote in the MCU for our own stuff. Back to Sony with you. I don't think Michael Morbius is really going to kind of go back and forth personally.
I just think this whole Sony verse and this Marvel universe being separate is just so silly. I think we're getting to the point where it just needs to be combined, and I'm thinking maybe in the Madame Web movie that's supposed to be coming out down the line, maybe that's how they combine all the worlds, because I could definitely see a Michael Morbius connecting and playing with all these other characters, and especially if we have a Michael Morbius who's used to dealing with vampires, then gets connected into the MCU. We have this super spooky secret Midnight Suns team kind of being forged in the background. Like if you have Blade in there and Michael Morbius is like, hey, I'm not a vampire, but I know how to take them. I'm very similar, and in my own universe, this is how I deal with them. And then he joins that team and does all this kooky, crazy stuff. I can see that. I can see a lot of future for this character if it's done right. But that's the key thing, is if it's done right. So if people enjoy Jared Leto's portrayal of Michael Morbius in the movie, and if the movie does well, that's where those doors kind of start to open up. If the movie does subpar and it's not even as good as Venom, I think then I'm with you, Chris. They're just gonna close the door of like, hey, this didn't happen. Thank goodness we didn't give you that shot because you would have blown it and it would have ruined our MCU world. I think this Sony kind of universe that they're building is almost like a test subject. So like, all right, what characters do well? What do you think would work in the MCU? And what do people really want in the MCU? If none of it works, we're just gonna keep it our own thing. But if Morbius does really well and already there's a connection with Vulture, we'll bring him in. Sure, yeah, fantastic. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're kind of in that realm where I am too, where it's very much so like this is clearly business transactional, right? In a lot of ways, unfortunately. It's clearly to keep that Spider-Man money they make from the MCU crossed over movies together so Sony could keep that contract on Spider-Man that was made, now decades ago, right? And whether Madam Web kind of fixes that situation or deepens it, I think the live action stuff that Sony's done hasn't been great. If you've watched our Venom takes, I'm kind of on the negative side of the Venom Sony stuff. This feels kind of in line with that in a unique way, right? We haven't seen them tackle a vampire character. We haven't seen them tackle a unique character in this way. I am interested to see what they do and the possibility of other characters in this. I really hope Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, is in this movie, personally for me. But I think Sony's real good quality Spider-Man stuff is in that animated Spider-Verse. I think that's where they need to keep their heads at it as far as keeping this and maybe focus on that and world building that instead of focusing on these random kind of live action movies just to be like, hey, we got one there, we fulfilled the contract.
Well, guys, those are our thoughts on this movie. Let us know down in the comments below what you think of the Michael Morbius movie. Are you excited to see it? We're dying to hear.
And guys, thank you so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, really helps the channel out a lot. If you're new, subscribe, turn on the notifications. You don't want to miss any more of our Morbius coverage. We're obviously going to review the movie when it comes out in theaters. And if you miss anything, make sure you check it out right here on the channel. And as always, my name is Chris Heller. That's Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Group, and we'll see you next time.